All right, well, the drama of medicine will always make for good movies, and television, can it go too far?
So in the case of the new Netflix movie, To the Bone, which explores the journey of a young woman and her battle with the disease anorexia. And the storytelling is compelling. Is it sensationalizing a disease afflicting nearly 30 million Americans? With us today is the author of both Table in Darkness and Brave is the New Beautiful, mental health practitioner and author Lee Wolf Blum. Well, welcome here to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's just right out of the gate. We think maybe we know what an anorexia is. To me, it's somebody who just doesn't eat, or that's an eating disorder. Is there something other than that that we should know about the disease?
Well, I think it's very important to understand To the Bone highlights one eating disorder, and there are 5 other clinical eating disorders out there. And so, yes, anorexia is not eating, but there's 5 other life-threatening eating disorders out there that aren't talked about, and so what To the Bone is doing is glamorizing only one. But you are exactly right. There are 30 million people in America struggling with an eating disorder, and 1/3 of them are men. And To the Bone does not. There is a male.
There is a male character.
Yep. But it just focuses so much on a young 20-something girl, white, Caucasian girl, when that is not the whole picture.
So obviously this show on Netflix has a huge platform.
Yes.
And that I would imagine is part of your concern, is that it sounds like it's just generalizing a very complex situation and a very complex disorder.
Complex, and eating disorders have the highest rate of mortality of any psychological disorder. So this is not just complex, this is life-threatening. And you walk a really fine line when you start to use a creative outlet such as Netflix to touch on something that is a life-threatening illness. And you pinpoint it and pigeonhole it when a movie takes it and only talks about anorexia. And my concern is if a young girl would turn on this movie, right? A young girl, and I'm not saying that media causes an eating disorder, because an eating disorder is caused by biological, psychological, and social factors. But something like this could be the fuel to the fire for a young girl or a young boy.
Make them go to that level.
The thing that people don't understand is that eating disorders, what starts an eating disorder is always a diet. Not that somebody starts a diet wanting to have an eating disorder, but if they've got the biological piece along with an overwhelming set of emotional circumstances, a diet can trigger then an eating disorder.
All right, so you've been talking about glamorizing anorexia.
Yeah.
Lily Collins is the main character here, and she plays kind of a tortured artist, but also, it's touched on in the movie that, control is a big part of eating disorders. That, okay, maybe it starts with a diet, but that maybe people don't understand that, it's multi-layered.
Right.
And it has a lot to do with not having control, and this is an area in people's lives that they feel that they can have control over?
I would say it's a little bit more than that. I would say that there's a misunderstanding in our society of how eating disorders happen. I would say that a lot of people think, oh, she's selfish or she wants control. So I work at the Melrose Center here in Minnesota, and I would say what I see more often than not is a feeling of not feeling good enough and then needing something to cope. So an eating disorder really is what is used to not have to feel. So I myself struggled 21 years ago with an eating disorder, and for me it was completely about not wanting to feel. So overwhelmed with my emotions, and Lily Collins shows this, the character Ellen in the movie. Her family is torn apart, she can't feel her own emotions. She had this very tragic thing just recently happen to her. So that part of the movie is actually pretty accurate. She didn't want to feel. So I would say it's more about being overwhelmed and flooded with emotions. A lot of times it's PTSD, some traumatic event that really makes somebody need to not want to feel.
What do you wish they would have done differently? What do you wish, you know, if you heard that this was coming out?
Yes.
What were you hoping for, you know, to be out in the spotlight now?
That's a great question. I don't think doing something on a platform like Netflix is a very good idea. I think documentaries are a little bit better. What I wish they would have done is not shown all these triggering images of Lily Collins, who's Ellen. There is a couple images that somebody who's struggling with an eating disorder will see that, and they will think that's how they have to be if they have an eating disorder. Now, you and I don't look at those images and see that, but somebody who's in the throes of an eating disorder, it might just make their eating disorder worse. So I wish they would have not used those images. It's very widely known in the eating disorder community that you never talk about weight. And in it, they talk about how thin she gets. They talk about symptom use.
They're weighing in.
They're weighing in. They're talking about the numbers. And I think that this is actually pretty dangerous for young people to be watching. So I wish it would have been a documentary. I do think they do something right. And what they do right is they show that eating disorders are not a choice. They aren't. Nobody chooses to have an eating disorder. But recovery is. And at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, but you see her finally making that choice on her own for recovery. And so that is a truth about eating disorders. Sometimes other people have to make the choice for you, like a treatment center, until you can make that choice. But I do believe that message was a good piece.
Right. Yeah. Well, Lee, what a great conversation, and something perhaps will open the conversation at your home.
Right, even further.
I hope so.
Lots to talk about. Lee, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate your time. You can see her books, Table in the Darkness and Brave is the New Beautiful. They are available right now online and in local bookstores.